Welcome to Healing Lives with Corey Gilbert, a podcast sponsored by the Healing Lives Center. Discover how to love and lead your family well and biblically. God created sex, marriage, and the family for our stewardship, growth, and benefit. My heart and passion is to teach, train, educate, and disciple Christians that want strong marriages and families. The Healing Lives Center has been serving Christians since the year 2000. Its mission is to be a center for sex, trauma, and marriage education and transformation, where we offer counseling, coaching, courses, and speaking services to you, your church, or ministry. Check us out at healinglives.com. Hey there, for my regular listeners, I wanted to give you a heads up. This episode is one that has a little bit of language. Why did I continue to do it? Because it's such an important topic on addiction, but I just wanted to give you a warning that in this episode there is a little bit of language, so be aware of that, because I know that's not normal in my podcast. So enjoy. Welcome. Today I have a great conversation coming up with Dr. Stephan Neff from New Zealand. And so I'm excited to see where this takes us. We have a lot to go through, from addiction story to redemption to even a new book on depression. So I'm excited to talk with you.
Corey, it is an honor for me to be here. Thank you very much. An honor and a privilege. That's very true.
Yes, we look forward to our journey here. So tell us a little bit about how you got where you are today, because it's been a wild ride, and your career even, just that whole...
Well, I'm an anaesthetist here in New Zealand, and I was born in Germany in the 60s. Typical of my generation, I became a latchkey child, and my come from poor background. So a single mum after a divorce, worked hard. I was brought up by my great grandma, so it was quite a bit of disruption there. And but yeah, I never thought, or my family never thought, that I bring it too much. It turns out that I knew how to learn and to apply myself, and ultimately, I became very good at school, and which allowed me then to choose the university of my liking, and I ended up studying medicine, and nice. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But the problem was along the lines. It was the 80s. There was not much self-improvement, and certainly I was never exposed to anything like that. It was the times of heroes that maybe are not so good for a young man. Mel Gibson and Lethal Weapon, yes. Bruce Willis. So the anti-heroes, the guys who wake up hungover, have a beer in the morning, have a fag, smoke, and then kill a few guys. So it's unfortunately that kind of heroes that I took on as gospel and took on as that's how a man behaves. Yes. Along the lines, there were some probably quite screwed up core beliefs. So I was a bit of a mess, but I was intelligent, I was cocky, and I was willing, I was driven. So I think these are the things that was sort of the baseline. Yeah. Unfortunately, there came a lot of trauma after that, and all this trauma was just bottled up because I never learned how to deal with my emotions. I never learned how to be proactive when it comes to my life. I was very proactive when it came to learning. There was a structure. I needed to pass that exam. I did pass that exam, so that was easy for me. But in life, I made it up as I went. And unfortunately, some years before that, I was the recipient of a gang assault. Wrong place, wrong time. But nevertheless, at age 13, I ended up no front teeth and pretty smashed up. Ooh. And I brought the gang leader behind bars, and he told me, when I come out, I kill you. Ooh. And so I knew I had 3 years until I end up in a kind of Hollywood fight to death kind of thing. So yeah, well, exactly. That was my young mind told me that. So I started training. I started training with the police, and I focused on something. I became quite good in it. I became Rambo, basically. Wow. And Rambo was quite dark. And so my whole teenager years were darkness, ultimately, and tension. And nowadays I recognize it as PTSD. Then there was no name for it, and it was just, me trying to survive.
Right.
And then the first year in university came, and three things came together. A, I realized the guy will never find me. B, I found girls. And C, I found alcohol. And I think that was the thing that many people don't recognize when it comes to addiction, that alcohol initially very much serves a purpose, and initially is the best friend that you can imagine.
Yeah.
And that applies to alcohol, that applies to drugs, to gambling, to sex, whatever it is. It serves a purpose, and it is the better alternative compared with the pain that you're going through.
Exactly.
So for me, it was, with hindsight, a PTSD. And then I will never forget that. I was on a Saturday lunchtime. I was meeting with two university friends. We were sitting in the summer in a German beer garden. Had a big mug of sort of a Stein, we call it. So 1 liter of beer fits in there. And it's German beer, not sort of American kind of water with some beer flavor. So some decent stuff. And I must have been much through the first liter when suddenly I felt this warmth coming over me, and the feeling of pure, unadulterated love. And I was laughing. And there was laughter around my table, and the world was nice. And it was that kind of beautiful dopamine rush that hit me. Unfortunately, I'm a bit of a Superman, and all alcoholics are Superman, Superwomen, because we have got a super response of dopamine, at least initially. So we often enough, if we were to measure our brain dopamine levels, they are much higher when it comes to such a rush than those people who would not become people who show behavior of addiction.
Right.
So there I was. Wow, my best thing ever.
It's a great.
And for the next 5 years, alcohol was my best friend, because it allowed me to decompress after a hard day's work. It allowed me to meet girls much easier. It allowed me sexually to function in a much better way, to a degree that I was able to predict how long an erection will last. And I was often making a joke. Come on, how long would you like me to make love to you? And when I then actually finished 2 hours later, the girls couldn't believe it. And it was that kind of a thing. So there were so many little things that no one ever talks about when it comes to alcohol initially. And it was amazing. Amazing. I loved it. The problem was,
you're in control.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
You're in control.
But then at some stage, things get a bit out of kilter, because firstly, this honeymoon period, I mean, it lasted probably 5-6 years with me, but there was ultimately the trauma didn't go away, neither the trauma from my PTSD, and there were more trauma was coming along. Right. And maybe when you're drinking, you're not making the best decisions in your life. That's certainly fair to say for me. So whilst it was a good friend, I stuffed up quite a few things. Decisions that I made and where I'm not proud of. And nothing ever against the law. I've got a very high respect for the law. So I'm not a man who turns into a fighter and goes against authority, but I'm a man who gets angry easily. And that was certainly later with the more grief and the more trauma there was, the angrier I became under the impact of alcohol. Wow. But initially, as I said, this was not the case. So I think the big lesson that I had to learn many years later was that alcohol was not my friend. But I had no alternative, really. And as an alcoholic, one of the key signs and symptoms is denial. So 95% of us will swear on our heart that there's nothing wrong with us. No, I'm not an alcoholic. No, Joe over there, look at him. Now he is drinking. How about me? No, never.
Yeah.
And then you come up with all kind of excuses and crap like that.
Yeah.
So ultimately, yes, I had genes. Probably I ticked off the full house of genetic predisposition, because there was a long line of alcohol abuse in my family. Now, again, if you go back in the generations, these guys have gone through lives you cannot even imagine. We're talking about wars. We're talking about a Nazi time. We're talking about earlier the Great Depression. After the war, my mother, I mean, they came up in very poor circumstances. So it was all wow. And there's enough excuses that you want to drown your sorrows, that you want to escape your reality. Please, we sometimes keep forgetting that too. We sort of look back in generations. Yeah, bloody alcoholics. Well, you walk a mile in their shoes. I want to see you.
They're there for a reason.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's always the same. And I think for generations, there has been frustration bottled up. There has been chaos. And none of my forebears had learned the lessons how to deal with those emotions. And ultimately, often enough, paid the ultimate price by drinking/smoking themselves into a early grave. And I would have been on the same trajectory had it not been for the fact that I had a wife. I have a wife. Let's go now into the presence. I was talking about history, so the hat snuck in there. No, I have a gorgeous wife, and this wife was an alcoholic as well. We both drank like fishes. We both are broken people. We both have got our trauma. And so she and I basically used alcohol as a crutch. But she was actually religious. She is religious. With the help of her church, she became sober about 3 years before me.
Nice.
And as so often happens with someone who has been an alcoholic, she became extremely anti-alcoholic. So the pendulum swung all the way the other way. So you can imagine the next 3 years were not the nicest years, because I kept drinking. And of course, I tried to hide it. And that's the second big hallmark. We are hiders. We are so busy as alcoholics, because in the morning we hide that we are hungover, and we hide that we want a drink, then we hide that we are buying the alcohol, we hide the alcohol, then we hide that we are drinking, and ultimately you try to hide that you're drunk. No, honey, I have not had a single drop. You can see where that leads. Then the next day starts again. And it is such a shitty life. But I lived that life, and more trauma came, more things. My parents died during that time, very slow and rotting deaths. I tried to give them a nice end of their life by putting them in a nice house that I paid for, and we didn't have the money, so my financial debts increased dramatically, and it was, oh boy. And I was working longer hours to get the money together. It was brutal. And all that, I didn't have any help. And that is to a degree self-inflicted, because another thing that we alcoholics do is isolation. There might have been people who were trying to help me. If they were, and I've got a suspicion they were, I certainly didn't want to know about it. I certainly rejected them. So you increasingly drink alone. You don't want to be around people, and you just want to wallow in your own misery. And that is certainly what happened to me. I became angry, I became sad, and I never had learned about my emotions. So the only time that I really could cry and be upset is when I was drunk. And then there were nights, my God, if I often would act.
And your wife, she was, so then during those 3 years, your wife was now sober.
Yeah.
How was that? Like that tension?
Awful Third World War, honestly, between us. And she was very frustrated with me, no doubt. But having said that, ultimately, maybe because of her being sober, she could see through my pain and my behavior that was as a defense mechanism against her.
She was
That
more
she
patient. Was she more patient then, or no?
no.
No. Okay.
Patience and my wife don't go well together, even nowadays. No, no. She is patient is the wrong word, but she was desperate enough
Okay.
to realize that A, she was still loving me, and B, that something had to change.
Yeah.
So behind my back one night, whilst I was in the garage, sobbing my heart out, snot and tears and everything, she actually called for help. She called my boss in the hospital, head of the department, who came around 10 o'clock at night and saw me in all my glory. And behind my back, they made the decision to organize an admission to a rehabilitation hospital in Auckland.
Yeah.
And so about 2.5 hours from here. And when I woke up in my hangover the next day, I was lying in bed. The door opened up, and in came my 2 teenage children and my wife, and they all lay next to me and showed me love. And I had no idea what this was all about. And they told me, "Hey, Dad, we love you, and we have organized an admission to a rehab hospital Friday morning." So I think that was Wednesday morning. Friday morning, we drive you up to Auckland, and you're going to stay there for a month.
Wow.
And they said it with love.
Yeah.
They said it with a conviction where I, even in this haze of pain and hangover and anxiety and guilt and shame and all these negative emotions, I realized that they had taken the choice away from me in a good way. It didn't have to make a decision. They had made the decision for me, and I recognized that it was made out of pure love. And I submitted there and then.
Do you
And
recommend
that
that?
was,
Is that
say what?
do you recommend that? Like that is a very powerful approach that they
Yes,
had to use.
yes, 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 yes. If with hindsight, yes, it worked for me 100%. And it worked. The reason it worked is that what then came was one of the top-notch rehabilitation programs I could have imagined. And I've written in my book, My Steps to Sobriety, My Steps to Sobriety, I have written about the ideal rehab hospital. And indeed, that hospital ticked all the boxes, I have to say. That was everyone there was an addict at one stage in their life, bar 1 or 2 doctors. All the rest, from the nurses to the mentors to the yoga instructor to whoever was there,
So
they
they
were
knew the
all
game.
in my place. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Yep.
And that was the one thing that I very early on learned from there. And once I saw that they all had their shit together, that was a big dramatic insight, because I would have never believed in a million years that I might one day lose my pain, or actually be able to deal with it in a much better way. Maybe even work through it and become a different man. So I was broken, and I knew it deep inside. I was a mess, and that had to do with the alcohol, but I think the alcohol was more the symptom, was more a flow-on effect of the trauma that was bottled up throughout my lifetime and that I had never dealt with. It was the result, my drinking was the result of core beliefs that were laid down at a very early age, where I have to say, oh boy, they were screwed up. But that was what it was. I was delivered this shit sandwich by well, in your case, you would say it's God. I'm an agnostic, so I don't believe in a deity of sorts. But there was certainly, I can't say that I have the nicest of lives.
How long
But that
ago?
is life, and
How long ago you been sober? How long sober?
8 years,
8 years. Wow.
8 years, and a little bit. So an amazing time. And if I look at myself today, this is such a different life.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I mean, let's stay with sober, because what I live today has nothing much to do with sobriety. And you might find, what is he saying? Sobriety is only that you manage to stop the demon of drinking,
Right.
or of cocaine or marijuana or whatever you actually, what mixture of poisons you take,
Right.
prescriptions, painkillers, etc.
Yeah.
They're all there because they take away the pain temporarily, and that is beautiful. So when you stop drinking, when someone gets sober, then what?
You're still
Because
focused
now
on the
you,
stuff. But
you've got the whole trauma is still there.
Yeah.
So now you've taken the crutch away. Great. Now what?
So true.
So now comes the healing. Now comes the hard work.
Right.
And I didn't realize that. I thought I walk out of here. I after a month there was a discharge ceremony, and I walked out. I expected rose petals, and that's right, fanfares. And then you come home and there's your family, and your family has had the nose to the grindstone. You were isolated in this bubble of rehabilitation hospital, whilst they were continuing in their own daily life, their own trauma, their own madness. And you come home and you expect to be lauded. Oh God, what a disappointment. But then again, now at least I recognize that. Right. And I realized that there was so much work to be done to actually be not recognized. That's the wrong word. I had to make amends. I think that is really what it came down to. We alcoholics, there's a joke. How do you know that an alcoholic is lying? His lips move. Okay, so how many promises did I break in the past? And now I came home and say, see, it will be very different. Yeah, right. I can't remember if my wife rolled her eyes. That's her normal go-to, but she would have probably, maybe behind my back.
Right.
And so I had to make living amends. Mm-hmm. I actually had to walk the walk, not talk the talk.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. Nice. That's exactly what I did. Because initially I felt powerless again. Now they're not recognizing me. They're not respecting me after all that what I've done. Yeah. And then I realized, however, due to the work that I had done with the counselors and my mentors, that was really a screwed up thinking. Yeah. So I started washing up.
You got to work.
And I was still, that's right, I got to work at home. I was not allowed to go back to work for another 2-3 months because the medical council in New Zealand made sure that I was actually safe, that there was a follow-up treatment plan very well in place. I was monitored with regards to alcohol consumption. So there was a whole safety net put in place, which was very scary, I guess.
Humbling
for me as Yeah, that's for sure. Absolutely. But it was equally, it held me accountable and helped me through those initial months and actually 2 years or 2.5 years, something like that. And it was an amazing time. So I started small and did what I had to do. And that culminated maybe 2-3 weeks down the line. I had my first row with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, we were still the broken people. Let's put it like that. We were still the broken people. We still had the triggers that we knew instinctively how to press.
Yeah.
And so very quickly, we were again on the top of our game in the kitchen. And we were literally standing opposite each other in the kitchen, screaming at each other. When I had this out-of-body experience, and similar to what you would see in a Hollywood film, that my mental eye went out 45 degrees up, 45 degrees over, and looked at this situation. And I must have turned quite blank because my wife recognized that and looked at me and said, "What the hell? Have you got a stroke or something?" She didn't say that, but that was the facial expression. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how long that lasted, but I then said, "Look, I just need to leave the room for a moment." Mm-hmm. And I walked out. And again, I don't know how long I stayed out, but when I came back, I can't even I can't even remember what exactly I said, but it was certainly something along the lines of, look, I'm really sorry that I triggered you this way. And maybe then dealt with the issue. But my wife was blown away.
Yeah.
She had no idea what to do. And that was completely taking the wind out of her sail.
Yeah.
And we stopped fighting there and then. And nowadays, I have to say, it's extremely difficult for my wife and me to fight. We both have made so much headway, we gained so many insights in how we both tick and how vulnerable still we are, what our go or fallback position is, i.e., you hurt me and therefore I defend myself, all that rubbish. That is beautiful.
Nice.
And even nowadays, my wife is going through menopause, so she can be a royal bitch, honestly. The mood swings from hell. But she has got the insight, and I've got the insight.
Yeah.
So when she's
skills.
Absolutely. So when she's filing off her horns and polishing her hoof down there, then I can say, actually, darling, what can I do? Should I make you a coffee? Can I take you in my arms? No, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Okay, I still love you. And then she knows what she is, and within seconds she apologizes. And it is what it is. That is a relationship that I cherish. 20 years ago, oh my God, no. But that only shows that if you actually get sober, that's the first step, and then deal with the trauma, deal with your life, and make conscious decisions every single day to become a better person, whatever that means for you, that the past will not equal the future. And it doesn't matter how many genetic predispositions you have got, how long your family history of alcoholics is, doesn't matter. My children, for sure, have all the genetic predisposition to be addicts. Yet they have seen me at my worst, and they have seen me at my best. And they have learned to open up. They have learned to seek help, something I could never do as a young man. For them, they sought help. They have gone already for their trauma, some of it due to their parents drinking. And they have dealt with that with the help of counselors. They have dealt with that with the help of insight. They have made their own mistakes and learned from it, but always under the light of it's okay to make a mistake. What can you learn out of it? Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. That is something that we strongly believe in here. And so that is...
What are the steps to sobriety then? So that your book is My Steps to Sobriety. What pieces of that would you want to touch on that would be kind of helpful for someone who might even themselves be in denial, but a lot of times their spouses, like they're married to someone who's definitely in denial, is having a problem?
I think if you imagine that you have a restaurant and that your restaurant is booming, it's really lovely, and your best friend has got a restaurant, and in his restaurant the tumbleweeds are rolling in the front, and one day he gives you a ring and says, look, please, can you come over? Can we have a cup of coffee? I don't know what's going on. I'm virtually bankrupt. I need help. Would you not come across and would you actually try to help? And what would you do as a friend? You would come across, you would probably go into his restaurant and sit down, order some nice items from the menu, check out his food, look around, see what is the ambience, what is the, how do the staff behave, etc. Then once you have eaten, you might go behind the scenes, have a look through his bookkeeping, have a look through his kitchen, and basically just figure out how does the whole place work. And then very soon, once you've done this inventory, you realize, okay, there's certain things that work well, and you might want to strengthen them. And there are certain other things that really do not suit him whatsoever. That might be items on the menu that no one is ever buying and causing him a loss because he's thrown the stuff away. Or it might just be that the whole theme is outdated and it needs actually some lipstick or even more on the front, actually a new refurbishment, something like that, and that's cool. And then at some stage you basically reopen and you have to announce, okay, come on guys, we have learned our lessons here, so you want to make some amends. You want to go to your customers and say, look guys, thank you for your loyalty, we got a bit astray, but now we're under a new focus. And guys, next time you come back, drinks are on us, or there's 30% off your menu as a thank you for you being loyal to us. So you're making amends to your customers. And then you see what works, you monitor your progress, and you maybe put a quality assurance program in, assure that all your staff and new staff coming on board is trained according to your values and to the way that you want this restaurant to be run. And then down the line, both of your restaurants are booming. And your friend had such a magic ride that he says, wow, you know what? I've learned so much from that. I will now give back. And I will actually, on a Tuesday morning, I open my restaurant for other restaurateurs, like a breakfast club for failing restaurateurs, where we can come together and learn together and maybe steam off and just have a whinge, etc. And so that is very logical. Wouldn't that be something that probably everyone, a good friend, would do? Well, that is exactly what I've described to you as a 12-step program. That is what nothing else, a 12-step program. Dear friend initially admitted that it was helpless, hopeless, what was going on. He needed help. And he admitted that there is a higher power, that there is someone else out there or a group of people who maybe know how to help him. So that was the first 3 steps. Then the next 3 steps is doing a brutal inventory and actually looking is what is going on. And that is what we do in a 12-step program. You write long lists and you write them in every detail. It is quite an amazing thing. There's, for example, my anger list. There's a number of descriptions for these lists, but my anger list, my resentment list. Oh my God, Joe. Oh, Joe, he did that, and that's how it made me feel. So this is a typical structure of an anger list, and you just write and write and write and write and write. And then after a while, you work on other things, and then a good mentor will bring you back to that list and then say, okay, now that we've worked a bit on you, let's go back through that list. And so Joe did that. That's how it made you feel. Now, can you remember what your input to that whole story was? What was the role that you played, maybe to kick off the whole scenario, or maybe as in reply to that? So it starts for you to take ownership. And that's where it starts. That's where the healing starts, because you realize that often enough you have been behaving like a dick. And and you can insert any kind of swear word you want here. Religious, not religious, doesn't matter. Gender neutral, whatever it is. We all behave sometimes in ways that we are not proud of. And the steps to sobriety are essentially there to help you in a systematic fashion through that journey. And I think that is so beautiful. So that is in my book, I very much wanted to demystify that. This is not some 12-step program, has not necessarily anything to do with God. It has not necessarily anything to do with religion. It works for any religion, for any belief systems, for anything whatsoever. Now, the sheer fact that typically 12-steps programs are held in church halls, etc., is simply because church halls are very nice. There is enough room in there, and they're typically cheap to rent or maybe are given for free as a service, and therefore they're held there. Otherwise, the AA or whoever runs the 12-step program would have to pay an arm and a leg to hire a room.
Well, and so what you're saying about the 12 steps and the steps to sobriety that you kind of outlined is something that, as I think of any one of us, all of us, how critical it is to take that assessment of ourselves and then to go through this process the truth is we all need to do this. There's not one person that would not benefit from going through these steps. They're not some magical steps. They're almost kind of more of a common sense, but they call you to it. They call you to stand accountable to your actions, your thoughts, your feelings,
absolutely,
your mistakes. Every mom needs to do it. Every dad needs to do it.
absolutely.
This is all of us, as you said, even religion aside, it's one of those things where we need to do this. Then, as you've had in the last many years with your wife and others, is you have a very different life. Not an escape from the past, but a new life.
Yeah.
But that trauma from the past doesn't have its tentacles reaching in and controlling what seems like every little thing of your life. You're able to set free.
Exactly. Or at least, I mean, you can't just cut all those tentacles off. They are still there. Okay. And they still come out. And sometimes they are very appropriate. I love my PTSD because my PTSD also made me a very good doctor. It's very hard for you to catch me out. Okay. So this hypervigilance can be positive. I have got a very much a situational awareness. It's very unlikely that I become again a victim of an assault. Well, let's rephrase that. I will see the assault coming, and this time I'm not the only one in hospital. Let's put it like that. So I actually like that. Okay. So
what's turning pain into a superpower is turning these bad things into an asset versus an all-correct liability my whole life.
Absolutely. And it can become a driving force for you. So many of the guests in my show have gone through tremendous trauma. And now they have made it into their drive. They've written books about their trauma. And they're going out there and just completely making sure that they do their best to help others deal with their trauma, or even better, prevent that trauma from happening.
Your show, this is, what's your show? It is
My Steps to Sobriety.
Yeah, My Steps to Sobriety. Okay.
Exactly. So I kept the title simple. Okay, My Steps to Sobriety gets you anywhere. But this is basically a repeating theme in those people who moved from victimhood to survivor and now are thrivers. So that's the natural sequence of development if you do the work. If you
do the work,
if you continue to wallow in your sadness and you're feeling really happy there, like a pig in mud, then unfortunately you will not progress. And that is sometimes really, really hard. I mean, this was recently So
go back to when you were in your first 5 or so years. You said that you had met your best friend, alcohol, and it worked.
Exactly.
Can someone break through when a person's in that stage of life and actually get them to get a clue this is a bad idea because they've got a best friend and it is working?
Yeah.
Or do you have
to? And that is very hard.
Apart? You have to wait till the wheels fall off.
That's a tricky one. That's a really tricky one. I mean, there are moves nowadays where luckily we are no longer as caught in the trap net of the alcohol industry, of us being in a situation where it's virtually socially unacceptable not to drink. Okay, so the hard drinking advertisement and sales meetings, etc., they were far more common in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. So life is changing. So nowadays there is more freedom of people to actually say no. There are movements like Try July or Movember. There are a lot of mental health kind of things where as part of that, people say, let's not drink. So that is something where we're making breakthroughs. And I think that is something that we can then use on those people who are still in the middle of that. And even a few days without booze can already make a difference. But if you then don't give anything in that comes close to the alcohol. So if you just take the crutch away, Well, guess what happens? This guy goes straight back.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you have to replace that. You have to replace that with things that are meaningful. Now, the problem with that is we are used to these dopamine rushes, and drugs and alcohol are very good in achieving that. Now, to have something else coming into that place, wow. I can tell you, it would, for example, with my taste, it would have taken quite a few months before my taste came back in the way that it is nowadays. I remember one day I stopped on the roadside and someone was selling strawberries. And I bought some strawberries for the family and took one at it. And it was the most beautiful strawberry I had eaten in my life. And I thought, what the hell? What is this brand of strawberries? I want more. And only then did I realize that actually the alcohol had tainted my brain, my taste buds, whatever it was. There was no joy. And then that was the first time several months later where I got a dopamine rush out of a normal substance, a substance that actually should give you the dopamine rush, not that artificial high that the alcohol gave me in the past.
Nice.
So it is hard to bring up something, but what you can bring up is a new way of life, and a person who is living with an addict. I think their key thing is not to lecture or tell them, yeah, that's how you do it. No, you need to lead by example. You need to get your own shit together. It is no good that you are a broken person telling the other broken person, nah, you are what a waste because you're drinking, and then you're behaving
kind of holier than thou.
With less integrity. That's right. And in reality, you've got less integrity than I don't know, a floppy jelly bean. Okay, so no. So you need to lead by example, and I think that is what you will see in families where addiction has really been dealt with. This is a family disease, and it is a disease where we all need to grow. Right. And I think that is the thing. So if you are the loved one, or if you're listening to this because you're concerned about a loved one, then you need to be quite clear that there is a huge journey ahead for yourself. Right. A journey of discovery, a journey of enlightenment, a journey of sadness, because you have to deal with the own trauma in your life, things that you have buried, but which actually caused you to have core beliefs that are less than productive. And maybe your own core beliefs, screwed up as they are now impacting the way you see this addict. Maybe, just maybe, it's getting too close to home because you have been a closet alcoholic. You have been a very depressed person, but don't want to know that it is true. And suddenly you recognize yourself in the person who, as it so happens, uses alcohol as a crutch. And maybe that is what is triggering you. Why are there these emotions? Is it really because you love this person, or because it reminds you of those traits in you that you hate? Right. So there are one way or the other, it's a huge learning curve for a family. And we have to say that we all don't live in isolation. Someone did some clever studies, and if you look at the fate of one person, how that impacts people around him, I think the figure was 29. So the fate of one person affects 29 other people. But even if you say that's rubbish, there's so many isolated people, forget it. Even if you say that each and every person has at least got one significant other. And if we now say that, okay, chemical addiction affects 1/3, even if you're more conservative, 1/4 of the adult population in the Western world, 25%. That means that half of the Western world is affected by addiction. So once you have that, and you guys, you heard right, I say half of the world is affected by addiction. Now, suddenly, you must admit yourself that actually this is not a lonesome disease. This is actually something that is not affecting a single person. That is infected. That affects, not infects. Sorry, that's COVID. That affects a huge amount of people out there. So maybe we should talk about it. Maybe we should make it a more common thing to address.
Well, like
Maybe
you
we
said, the
should.
isolation. They isolate
Yeah,
themselves, but it doesn't mean they are isolated. So I'm pulling away to
exactly.
be with my best friend, my drug of choice, but I
Yeah,
have not moved to the woods in the middle of nowhere. I'm still in relationship with people, and
exactly.
so it's affecting a lot of people, and probably
Yeah.
way more closer to that number 29 than just
Mm.
one. Because
I agree with you.
yeah,
I agree. And you don't realize it until you actually stop and go
mm,
onto this journey of discovery
mm,
that is called initially sobriety, and then it is called living your life to the fullest.
mm.
And
Well, so
sobriety.
uh,
Mhm.
tell me about your. So you have a new book that it just came out that you've
Mm.
put together with some incredible stories, and it's called Depression Lied to Me. Tell me about that. Depression Lied
Indeed,
to
right.
Me. Yes.
Depression lied to me. It's a beautiful multi-author book. I
Mhm.
brought together storytellers, in this case, female storytellers, who have gone through depression. And once you go through a mental health problem and you start open up about it and you talk about it, you realize that there's so many lies that the disease tells you. That is true for depression. That is true for any mental health problem,
Right.
for addiction, so many things.
Yes.
And I have had the honor of working together with 14 women who wrote their story
Nice.
down. They
Nice.
come from all walks of lives, from all kind of. Some of them are religious, some not. Some of them are very spiritual, some not. So different cultures. So it was beautiful,
Nice.
and to hear their stories, the way they perceive the darkness,
Mhm.
and then the solutions and their path to the light. That was beautiful to actually bring that all together and raise awareness of the all the lies that these diseases tell you.
Nice.
And maybe one of these stories will hit home to your readers, to your viewers, listeners.
Nice.
And because it is, the more we talk about it,
Mhm.
the more we normalize it. And that's exactly what my mission is. I
Nice.
want to impact 1 million lives in the next 5 years through
Nice.
my channels, through my books, through my projects, because I believe that we, by opening up, by being transparent in our weaknesses, in our own suffering, in
Mhm.
our triumphs,
Yeah.
we can show that the past does not equal the future. It doesn't matter if you have been near suicidal due to depression, or if you have been in the gutter, hopefully metaphorically rather than
Right.
virtually, with addiction. Um, Even if you have been, even if you had to sell your body in order to make the money for your pee or for your drugs, the past does not equal the future.
Mhm.
You have been in the darkness. It's now time to embrace the light, and in turn to become the light.
Yeah.
And that is the key message. That is why you, Corey, and I sit here, while
Mhm.
we are talk with conviction,
Yep.
that because we have seen that transformation so many times, we know it is possible. Not just possible, likely,
Mhm.
if you put the right steps in place. And
Exactly.
these right steps might be different for in whatever situation you are. So the starting point will most likely be different for each and every one of us. But a systematic approach will be necessary to help you. And as far as addiction is concerned, the 12-step program is a fantastic approach. But
Mhm.
similar programs are equally in place when it comes to more behavioral problems, such as eating disorders,
Mhm.
such as gambling, such as sex addiction. There are so many problems out there that need to be tackled first. So we're destroying the crutches, but parallel, we're building up those broken men and women, and are instilling a new sense of self-worth, something maybe that has never been there before. but that is where you build up integrity, humility, authenticity, those kind of words that in many lives are just cliches.
Yeah.
Whilst most of us in sobriety, we are walking the walk. And by that, we're leading by example. And by doing so, we become the light in the darkness of someone else. And that is the beautiful thing. That is what makes me proud.
Yeah.
That is, I'm not proud of I'm proud of some things in my life, but there are many things that I rather would like to forget.
Right.
And on my deathbed now, I will not look back in sorrow.
Yes.
On my deathbed now, I will say, okay, at least the last 8 years, I've kicked ass. I have gone out there and I shared my story. And by that, hopefully, I've planted the seeds that other people can reap the harvest from and become in their own right the sower of new seeds. That is the legacy I want to live. That is what I want to have on my gravestone. And then I'm a happy man, and I'm already now happy because I get to talk to people like you who are on the same mission. We both are on a mission to make this world a better place, and this world bloody well needs it right now. So therefore, let's go out there. Let's work together in teams. Let's infuse each other by being transparent and share our stories. For those of you, please, one thing I want to say about shame and guilt is one of the things I often that held me back is, how could I possibly admit to it? I'm a doctor. My goodness. Doctors can't be sick. Doctors can't be drunk. Oh my God. No way. No way. Nowadays, when I hold a clinic, and the door opens and I look at this guy and I can see it from a mile. Man, you're in trouble. Yeah, okay. So I have actually a little business card with my show and my Steps to Sobriety on there. Sometimes people pick that up and ask me, or I guide the discussion towards it when I think it needs to be addressed. And it is beautiful. So my own GP, my own family physician, asked me, wow, you've written this book. Are you not worried about your career, what other people think, what your patients think? Let me be very honest. In those 8 years, no one has ever said anything but admiration for what I'm doing.
So good.
Okay, my patients, my colleagues. In fact, when I wrote the book and I released it, the very first edition, I was over Christmas holidays. So I came back in the first week after holidays to the hospital, and in the changing room got changed. Another doctor was next to me and said, what did you do? What did you get up to? And I said, I write a book. He said, oh, cool. What about? And I said, about me being an alcoholic and my story. And he stopped his track, looked at me and said, what did you do that for? And I thought, whoa, that's a strange response. And I just it was something I had to do. And he walked away. And 6 hours later, I got a text on the phone. Stephan, can I talk to you? And it was exactly that man, a man that I hold in very high esteem, a man who has been so successful, not just as a doctor, but as a businessman. For crying out, the guy flies a helicopter. That he is paid off. Okay, so he is good. Yet he had just lost his wife due to his drinking and those kind of things. So here you go. But it just shows you, this is a disease that is, alcohol is the perfect solvent, I always say. It dissolves bank accounts, it dissolves marriages, it dissolves careers. It's the perfect solvent. Okay, so it does that, and it does take no prisoners. It doesn't care the skin color. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor. It does the same thing to everyone.
Yeah.
So therefore,
we believe that if I get found out, it's going to ruin my career, and the irony is, it will ruin your career.
Nope. That's right. On the contrary, it will make you a better person.
It will. Because
people will look up with admiration to you. And those people who look down on you, you know exactly, you have got a problem. Yeah. Okay. And guys, you can't get everyone on your side. Okay. Remember, 1 in 10 people have got a personality disorders. So they are the jerks in life. Okay. You can't do anything about that. 1 in 10. 1 in 100 is a psychopath or a sociopath. Okay, these are the really stuffed up people. You can't do anything about that. So therefore, if you just take these two percentages, you know, okay, whatever changes you make,
right,
there will be people who hate you for it because they recognize, wow, you're making far better progress than they will ever do, and they can't do it, and therefore they hate you. So let's be quite clear about that.
Right.
But guys, go out there. Go out there. If you are held back by shame, then please let me reassure you. No, you will find new friends that actually mean something, not just drinking buddies. You will find hope out there, and your life will change forever into a way that you probably can't even fathom, can't even get an idea. Yeah.
It's around the corner. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, I know as a professor and counselor and stuff, I've consistently spoke of depression. Like it has always had a hold on me and had a relationship with that. And the way that we talk today about mental health is so much better than in the years past, for sure. But we still have a long ways to go of demystifying. To me, I actually tell my students, I was like, every one of you have a mental health. So stop acting like they have a mental health problem and you're fine. Every one of you have
very true.
a mental health. How are you stewarding that? The people you put around, the stuff you watch, the things you listen to, the things you ruminate on. And some, it's extremely diagnosable. And I would say, really, for all, we could probably diagnose everyone. But how are you actually overcoming? And so alcohol is even just more overt, if you will, because you have to go buy it and then bring it in your home. And
but equally, therefore, it's easier recognizable. Therefore, that is actually an advantage. There is a big hallmark there that actually says, "Hey, here's someone who needs help." So, to a certain degree, this is easier to deal with than maybe a constant droning depression there, where people sort of keep that mask up in a much easier way, at least during work, and then fall apart at home. So, you know, if you're completely drunk and falling around, well, that's a bit more obvious than the silent depressions that many women, more so than men, but also the boys, go through. Okay. So no, these discussions are so worth their weight in gold. Let's go out there. Let's make this world a better place. Corey, I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing by you having this platform to allow us to exchange those ideas in public and show them. I mean, show the world. If Corey and I can get our shit together, come on, there is a fair chance. There's a fair chance that you guys can do that too.
Yeah. And so your website is mystepstosobriety.com. Definitely check out the books, My Steps to Sobriety, and then also the new one, Depression Lied to Me, which is a lot of stories of women that have been there.
On your podcast. Exactly. On the website, you also find my children's book. Oh, it's quite glorious. I'm sorry. Esme, the Mindful Mouse, who is a little mouse who lives in our beautiful redwood forest and has got she's very vivacious and lives her life to the fullest, but in doing so, she often enough angers her friends, and she has to learn that there are certain bad things that she has done, but that she is not a bad mouse. The difference between your behavior and being a bad person is a huge difference. So things like that. So I do a lot of things, and I try to start conversations with the help of pictures, with the help of books, with the help of my podcast, my show, with the help of me leading by example. And this is just a beautiful journey. So if you want to know anything more about that, go to My Steps to Sobriety. You will find my a lot of things there as a starting point. I've got a Patreon page where this year I will actually go back to school, and I will actually become your guinea pig. Because we say, well, there are so many things where we can improve ourselves. And often enough, these are platitudes. I actually will go out there and do that. So right now, just at Christmas, I've been weighing myself. It was 144.5 kilogram. So about 300 pounds of quality manhood. Yeah, not so much. Not so much. So I actually came to the conclusion, hang on, I have conquered, or at least dealt with addiction. I probably have come a bit with cross addiction in the sense that I've been using food now to deal with stress, to deal with, I basically had some emotional overeating.
Right.
So right now I've said, okay, come on, guys. I show you not just my talk in the past. See, in the past I got sober. No, I show you right now I can get my shit together again. So I will drop my weight this year to 99.9 kilogram. So I will drop a third of my body weight. I'm on the wrong side of 50s, or on the right side of 50s, however you look at it. I'm 56. I live a stressful, sedentary lifestyle. I can't do anything about that. I can't just stop working, have a private chef on an island. I would drop weight in no time. No, but how do you actually do that? And I go back to school. I will do functional medicine diploma, and I will share that all with my patrons. Nice. And I will go out there and I will show you, this is how we do it. These are my wins. These are my failures, my not so good days. But again, I want to demonstrate that the past does not equal the future. That we can all do it together. So, guys, you can do it. Nice. You can do it. This is the start of your life right now.
It is. Great. Well, Dr. Stephan Neff, thank you so much for coming on. Great conversation. Look forward to seeing how this year shapes out for you. Literally shapes out for you.
Yeah, that's right. I can't wait. And I'm on this journey already. It is 10 days into the new year, and I feel good.
Good.
Corey, thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show. It was a true honor. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Healing Lives with Corey Gilbert podcast. It has been an honor to serve. If you are struggling, have questions, or in need, Dr. Gilbert offers a free consultation for new clients. Check us out at healinglives.com to book a call. If this has been helpful to you, please share it, leave a review, and help us get the word out so that we can see lives changed, marriages transformed, and more people come into a life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ. The Healing Lives Center offers online courses, programs, books, intensives, and other services to help you live biblically and well. Discover more resources on YouTube and in Dr. Gilbert's Healing Marriage Facebook group, The Healing Marriage.